With that, we bring in retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery. He served more than 30 years in the U.S. Navy as a nuclear-trained surface warfare officer. He is the senior director at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and it's great to have you with us, Admiral. Thank you very much for joining me today. So what do you make of this activity that Iran is trying out in the Strait, going after these cargo ships?
So they're shooting ships that are in the southern transit scheme, the one where
near
Oman, where we're providing both aircraft and surface ships, destroyers as protection. And they're testing that. And they've been testing it. They've been firing since June 1st, on and off. We've shot down 100, plus drones and missiles or fast attack craft coming at them. This one got through. I think one other one's gotten through a few weeks ago. That's likely going to happen when you're not doing formal convoy operations. But we shouldn't have to do convoy operations. We have a deal with them where there's a safe transit for each side. We've pulled our blockade back, or in the process of pulling it back. They're supposed to allow this free flow, and certainly through the Oman transit scheme, where they're not in any position to toll or fee. There should be free transit through there. So the United States, I would think militarily, you need to respond to something like this. I understand politically that may not be the right decision.
What do you think would be an appropriate response?
So a proportionate response to this would be a strike, a missile strike on the launch points or the stowage points or the command and control that do drone attacks from Bandar Abbas, the area in Iran near the Strait, into the Strait. I'm sure we saw where they fired from. I'm sure we saw where they pulled the drone out of. That's where I'd counterstrike. So
obviously they do still have missile launch capability to some extent.
Certainly drone launch down south and then ballistic missile launch throughout the country. That's a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem, obviously. So they're attacking these ships in the lane that is supposed to be a free area of transit. It sounds like their way of saying, no, you have to come this way. You have to come closer to Iran. We're probably going to toll you, charge you a fee to get across. And if you try to go the freeway, we're going to threaten your ships. And cargo ship owners are going to start to say, I don't know if I want to send my ship through there. It's not safe.
Yeah, and we've heard the International Maritime Organization, the kind of international organization that looks after the ships, say that, hey, we've got to put a pause while we figure out. And what they're really saying to the United States Navy is, show us an improvement in security, show us a more secure route. So I think what we'll see is probably a few more ships or aircraft being put in the defensive positions around there and a continuation. I do think that if they attack again, if the Iranians do this again, the president will hold them accountable. He'll take a little bit of a blip in the price of, crude, but I think he'll take that risk to do the kind of proportionate strike to say, stop this.
So, we get constant response. A lot of it sounds very overblown from Iran in terms of their own capability. But this is the foreign affairs spokesperson, and he's calling out the Gulf states in this instance. He says, for the Gulf Cooperation Council to imagine that the solution to addressing this concern lies in seeking refuge with the greatest violator of security is in itself a violation of the very purpose, a bitter irony and a disheartening sign of failing to learn from recent bitter experiences. So you watch this push and pull between the Gulf states who were attacked in the early stages of this by Iran. Now Iran wants to convince them that they should get in league with them once again.
Look, Iran has a very short period here where they can use this rhetoric and try to pressure the Gulf Cooperation Council states, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, UAE. And that's because two things are in play. First, the Gulf states are getting counter-drone, ground-based counter-drone interceptors from Ukraine. That's going to take the Shahed problem away from their critical infrastructure. And that's happening right now as President Zelensky has been visiting all those countries. The second is Saudi Arabia is building a cross-peninsula pipeline to double their amount from 5 million to probably eventually 10 million. And United Arab Emirates is doing the same thing to Fujairah. And these countries don't have environmental impact statement delays or OSHA or EPA.
They can move fast.
They're going to be built
fast. And they're
fast. Overland. And when they do that, the leverage that Iran has, especially for crude, is going to go way down.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best ways to approach this is to make the Strait obsolete. Make it less and less of an avenue for transit of all of this oil, and because it just lowers their leverage, right?
That's exactly it. Short term, defend yourself better.
Right.
Long term, make the Strait not an issue.
But you're the second general I heard today who said we should respond to this. Take out a missile launcher in response.
Yeah, you need a proportionate response here. But I recognize admirals and generals don't make these decisions.
Right.
Politicians do, and the president, could exercise that decision making and probably wait for one more strike.
And we know they have a lot of good intelligence on where these are positioned. So, thank you very much, Admiral. Always good to see you, Mark Montgomery. Thank you for joining me today. Nice to see you on set.
Thanks, ma'am.